The betrayal of a wedding. The secret that changed everything. You are about to witness a tale of love, betrayal, and a shocking secret that will change everything. Don't forget to press the like button to show your support and subscribe so you don't miss a single word. The grand ballroom of the Los Jasmines estate gleamed under the glare of crystal chandeliers. Every detail had been meticulously arranged for what was heralded as the wedding of the year. Ethan Vance, the 38-year-old CEO of the tech giant Vance Tech Solutions and one of the richest men in Mexico, adjusted his Italian silk tie, his gaze sweeping over the final preparations. He had everything a man could desire: a multi-million-dollar fortune, an unblemished reputation, and in a few hours, he would marry Celeste Valdez, the elegant heiress of a prominent family from Madrid. However, an unshakable anxiety gnawed at him, a feeling he couldn't shake, no matter how much he tried to project an air of calm. "Mr. Vance, the first guests are starting to arrive," announced his personal assistant Philip, a man in his 50s who had been with him for over a decade. Ethan nodded, his gray eyes running over the guest list one last time. 350 carefully selected people: ministers, ambassadors, captains of industry, and a host of celebrities. All had come to celebrate their union, but there was only one name on that list that truly mattered to him. And it was the presence of that person that filled him with the greatest dread. Vivian Dominguez, his first love, his first passion. The woman with whom he had shared 5 intense years before a tragic misunderstanding separated them forever. 8 years had passed since he had last seen her. 8 long years, during which he built his empire, while trying to forget the scent of her brown hair and the sound of her crystalline laughter. Why on earth had he had the foolish idea to invite her to his wedding? Perhaps to prove to himself that he had completely moved past her? Or maybe out of pure masochism? He was no longer sure. What do you think was the real reason behind Ethan's impulsive decision to invite his ex to his wedding? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. The hours passed slowly, marked by the effusive congratulations of the guests and the social smiles that Ethan distributed easily. Celeste was radiant in a custom-made wedding dress, her blonde hair perfectly swept up in an intricate chignon, her family jewels sparkling in the lights. She was the epitome of elegance, the exact type of woman a man of his stature was supposed to marry. Even so, Ethan couldn't help but cast furtive glances toward the entrance, searching for a silhouette he would recognize among thousands. "You seem distracted, darling," Celeste whispered, her arms slipping under his. Her perfect smile didn't waver, but he heard a touch of concern in her voice. "Is everything all right?" Ethan forced a smile, gently caressing her powdered cheek. "Everything is perfectly fine, my love. Just the excitement of the moment." But deep down, he knew he was lying. Nothing was fine, and the feeling of suffocation in his chest intensified with every passing minute. The civil ceremony in the hacienda's gardens proceeded smoothly under a clear April sky. A close family friend and politician gave an emotional speech about love and commitment. Ethan replied, "Yes, I do," with a firm voice, but his eyes continued to discreetly scrutinize the crowd. Vivian was still not there. Perhaps she had decided not to come after all, which was probably for the best. And yet, a part of him couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment. Applause erupted when the official declared them husband and wife, and Ethan kissed Celeste with all the tenderness he could muster. The photographers captured the moment, which would surely be rated as the kiss of the year by the gossip magazines. But his mind was elsewhere, obsessed by a single question. Was this how a man was supposed to feel on his wedding day? This feeling of emptiness, as if he were an actor in a play whose script he didn't control? The secret unveiled, The cocktail reception had been in full swing for about an hour when Philip approached Ethan with his usual air of concern. "Sir, we have a delicate situation at the entrance. A Ms. Dominguez has just arrived, but—" He hesitated, which was unusual for the normally straightforward man. "But what, Philip? She hasn't come alone, sir. She is accompanied by a small child, who appears to be about 7 years old." Ethan felt the blood run cold. 7 years old, exactly the age a child would be if conceived on their last night together. That night of passion and tears that preceded their final breakup. "Let them in," he said. His voice was more strained than he intended. "And Philip, not a word of this to anyone for now." His assistant nodded and quickly moved away, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts, which galloped like runaway horses. A 7-year-old girl. It had to be a coincidence, right? Vivian would have told him if she had a daughter. No, she had never spoken to him again after that fateful night. He had tried to contact her for months, but she had changed her number, moved, and disappeared from his life, as if she had never existed. The minutes that followed felt like an eternity. Ethan continued to smile and shake hands, but his mind was elsewhere, fixated on this revelation that threatened to shatter his world. Celeste, fortunately, was busy with friends who were gushing over her dress and jewels, giving him a moment to regain his composure. He drank his champagne, trying to look relaxed, but his hands trembled slightly, and he had the unsettling feeling that every guest could read his thoughts on his face. It was then that he saw her. Vivian appeared on the terrace, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. She was even more beautiful than he remembered, her brown hair falling freely over her shoulders, her simple but elegant dress highlighting her graceful silhouette. But what truly took his breath away was the small girl holding her hand. A girl with light brown hair and gray eyes so strikingly similar to his own that he could not deny the truth that now struck him like a hammer. The girl was his spitting image at that age. The same fine features, the same intense gaze, the same way of slightly tilting her head when something intrigued her. Ethan felt his legs weaken, and he had to discreetly lean on a column to stay upright. How was this possible? How could Vivian have hidden the existence of their daughter from him all these years? Vivian's gaze swept the crowd until her eyes met his. And in that instant, that felt like an eternity. 8 years of silence and unsaid words hung between them like a heavy shroud. She was pale, visibly as shocked as he was, but there was a determination in her eyes that he didn't recognize. The girl, meanwhile, looked around curiously, impressed by the hacienda's opulence and the elegance of the guests. "Mommy, is this where my daddy is really getting married?" the girl asked, in a clear voice that reached Ethan's ears despite the background noise. Vivian leaned down and whispered something to her, but Ethan had heard what he needed to hear. "Daddy." The girl was talking about him as her father, which meant Vivian had told her the truth about her origins. But then, why had she come today? What did she want from him after all these years of silence? He needed to go talk to her, but his feet felt glued to the floor. How could he explain to Celeste, on their wedding day, that he might have a 7-year-old daughter with his ex-fiancée? How could he justify the fact that he had invited that same ex-fiancée to his wedding without telling her? He was caught in a trap he himself had created, and the consequences of his actions suddenly loomed over him with brutal clarity. "Ethan, who is that woman looking at you like that?" Celeste's voice brought him back to reality. His new wife was by his side, her sharp gaze fixed on Vivian and the girl. There was a hint of jealousy in her voice that she tried to hide with social courtesy, but Ethan knew her well enough to detect the signs of her imminent displeasure. "An old acquaintance," he replied evasively, striving to maintain a neutral tone. "I didn't think she would come." Celeste raised a perfectly drawn eyebrow. Her female intuition told her that this, old acquaintance was much more than he was willing to admit. And the child? She looks strikingly like you, don't you think? Ethan felt a drop of sweat form on his forehead. His wife was far from naive, and he knew he couldn't hide the truth for long. Before he could answer, Vivian approached them, still holding her daughter's hand. Each of her steps resonated in Ethan's mind like the tolling of a gong, announcing the inevitable confrontation he so feared. "Hello, Ethan," Vivian said, her voice steady as she reached them. "Congratulations on your wedding." Her tone was polite but distant, the kind you use with a complete stranger. Only the slight tremor in her voice betrayed her emotion. "Hello, Vivian," he finally managed to say. "I'm glad you could come." It was a lie. He wasn't glad. He was terrified, confused, overwhelmed by a mixture of emotions he couldn't unravel. Celeste stepped forward, her arms possessively sliding around him, marking her territory. "I don't think we've been introduced," she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand toward Vivian. "I am Celeste Vance, Ethan's wife." The emphasis on the word wife left no doubt about her intentions. Vivian politely shook the extended hand, her smile not faltering for a second. "Vivian Dominguez, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Vance. Allow me to introduce my daughter, Leo." The girl made a perfect curtsy, as she had undoubtedly been taught, and gave Celeste a radiant smile. "Hello, ma'am. Mommy told me you were very pretty, and it's true." The child's innocence contrasted cruelly with the electric tension between the adults. Celeste couldn't help but smile, touched by the child's spontaneity. But Ethan saw that her eyes remained cautious. "How old are you, Leo?" Celeste asked with forced sweetness. "I'm 7.5, ma'am. I'll be 8 in December." Ethan closed his eyes for a second. December. Exactly 9 months after that last night they had spent together. That last night of love, before they separated forever. The math was relentless, and there was no longer any possible doubt about the child's paternity. The silence that followed was deafening. Celeste, who was not foolish, was visibly starting to put the puzzle pieces together. Her gaze moved from Ethan to Vivian, then from Vivian to Leo, and he could almost see the gears in her mind spinning at full speed. When she finally looked at her husband, there was a cold glare in her eyes that he had never seen before. "Ethan, could you give me a moment alone?" she asked in a dangerously calm voice. It wasn't really a question, but a thinly veiled order, and both of them knew it. The wedding day ultimatum. Ethan nodded, unable to refuse, despite knowing that this conversation would probably be one of the most difficult of his life. "Vivian, if you'll excuse us for a few minutes," he said, turning to his ex-fiancée. "Perhaps we can talk later." Vivian nodded, perfectly understanding the delicate situation her mere presence had created. "Of course, Leo and I will go see the gardens in the meantime. They are magnificent." She took her daughter's hand and walked away gracefully, leaving behind a trail of perfume that instantly transported Ethan 8 years back. Celeste waited until they were out of earshot before turning to her husband, her mask of social grace instantly dropping. "Don't tell me you didn't know," she hissed through clenched teeth, her blue eyes shining. "That girl is your spitting image, Ethan. How could you hide something like this from me on our wedding day?" "I honestly didn't know, Celeste," he replied, his voice choked. "I swear I didn't know. If I had known Vivian was pregnant." He trailed off, unable to say what he would have done. "Why did you invite her?" Celeste asked, her voice cracking slightly. "Why did you invite your ex-fiancée to our wedding without even telling me? Was it your intention to humiliate me in front of all of society?" "It wasn't my intention," he pleaded, trying to take her hands, but she sharply pulled away. I don't know what I wanted, Celeste. Maybe to prove to myself that I had gotten over her. Maybe to have a conversation with her to finally close that chapter of my life. I had no idea she would come with your daughter?" Celeste finished bitterly. Your daughter, whose existence you didn't know about until today. How is that possible, Ethan? How can a woman hide a child from a man for 7 years? I don't know, he admitted, but I fully intend to find out. Celeste, I know this is terrible for you, for us, but I cannot act as if this child doesn't exist now that I know she's here. She is my daughter. The words rushed out before he could stop them, and he immediately saw the effect they had on his wife. She paled, swayed slightly, and had to lean on the wall to keep from falling. Your daughter, she repeated, as if the words were poison in her mouth. We got married 3 hours ago, Ethan, and you're already telling me you have a daughter with another woman. How do you expect me to react? How do you expect us to build our future together, with this secret between us? Her voice was now choked with sobs she desperately tried to suppress. We will find a solution, he finally said, though he had no idea what it could be. Let me talk to Vivian, understand why she did this, and then we'll see how to handle the situation. Celeste looked at him intently. All right, she finally said. But let me be clear, Ethan. I will not share my husband with the ghost of his past. If that woman has your daughter or not, you will have to choose. It's her or me, but not both. With those words, she turned and walked back toward the guests, instantly putting her mask of the radiant newlywed back in place. Ethan watched her go, wondering if he had just lost his wife on his wedding day. The truth in the gardens. Ethan eventually headed toward the gardens. He found Vivian and Leo by the lily pond, the girl happily counting the goldfish while her mother gazed thoughtfully at the water. Hello, Daddy, Leo exclaimed happily when she saw him, and those two simple words hit Ethan's heart like a bomb. Hello, Leo, he replied gently, crouching to her level. Up close, the resemblance was even more stunning. You look very pretty in your blue dress. Leo smiled radiantly. Mommy bought it especially to come see you. She said it was a very important day, and I had to look beautiful. Ethan looked at Vivian, who finally turned toward them. Her face was impassive. Leo, would you like to go see the swans by the pond? Just don't get too close to the edge, okay? The girl enthusiastically skipped away, leaving her parents face to face for the first time in 8 years. Why? Ethan finally managed. Why didn't you tell me anything? Why did you raise our daughter alone? Why come today, on my wedding day? Vivian's face hardened slightly. Because you made it very clear that you never wanted to see me again, she replied, her voice quiet, but full of reproach. Because you accused me of terrible things that night, Ethan. Because you refused to listen to me when I tried to tell you the truth. So when I found out I was pregnant, I preferred to raise our daughter away from you rather than risk her suffering your contempt. Ethan felt a dagger twist in his chest. That night, 8 years ago, he had accused her of cheating based on a gossip magazine photo. You should have told me about Leo, he insisted. Whatever our differences, I had a right to know I had a daughter. Vivian let out a bitter laugh. Oh, yes. And what would you have done, Ethan? Would you have married me out of obligation? Would you have given up your precious career, your ambitions, your lifestyle to be a father with a woman you accused of infidelity? No, I don't think so. I preferred to let you live your life and build mine with our daughter. And what did you tell her about me? He asked, looking at Leo. She called me Daddy, as if she had known me all her life. Vivian's expression softened. I told her the truth, Ethan, that her daddy was a very important, very busy man, that he couldn't live with us, but that he loved her very much. I showed her your photos in the newspapers. I spoke of your business successes. I never wanted her to hate you or think you had willingly abandoned her. This confession shocked Ethan. Despite their painful breakup, Vivian had preserved his image in their daughter's eyes. Then why now? He asked. Why come today on my wedding day? What do you want from me, Vivian? Vivian took a deep breath before responding, as if gathering the courage to say something difficult. Because Leo is sick, Ethan. She needs a bone marrow transplant, and I am not a match. Her voice broke on the last words. The doctors say her chances of finding a compatible donor significantly increase if a close relative can be tested. You are her last hope, Ethan. The world crumbled around him. His daughter, this magnificent child he had just discovered, was sick, potentially dying. And Vivian had come to him not to upend his life or take revenge, but to save their daughter. "What is the illness?" he managed to articulate. "Leukemia," Vivian replied, discreetly wiping her eyes. "Diagnosed 6 months ago. She has responded well to chemotherapy, but the doctors say a transplant is necessary to ensure a complete cure. I have exhausted all donor banks in Mexico and Europe. You are her last hope." Guilt flooded him, mixed with a terror he had never felt. "I will get tested," Ethan said, without a second thought. "Tomorrow morning?" "No, tonight if necessary. What do I do?" "Here, contact." Vivian finally smiled, a genuine smile that reminded him why he had fallen in love with her years ago. "Thank you. I knew that despite everything, you couldn't refuse to help Leo." "She is my daughter," he replied simply, "and I will do everything in my power to save her." "A new direction. Why wait until today?" Ethan asked. "You could have come sooner." "I tried to contact you several times," Vivian confessed. "I called your office, but your assistant always said you were in a meeting or traveling. I wrote letters I never sent, and then I saw your wedding announcement in the papers, and I thought if you invited me, maybe it would be a sign that you were willing to listen to me." "I discovered the truth a few months later," Ethan confessed, his voice husky. "Marco himself told me, laughing, that the photo had been taken at the moment protocol required him to dance with all the important women of the evening. He found it amusing that he could have caused problems between us. But you never contacted me to apologize," Vivian said softly. "You preferred to keep your pride rather than admit your mistakes." "I tried," Ethan insisted. "God knows I tried, Vivian. But you had disappeared. You had moved, changed your number, left your job. No one knew where you had gone. I even hired a private detective to find you." Vivian was surprised. "You tried to find me?" "For months," Ethan confirmed. "I was going crazy. My loved ones finally convinced me it was better to stop, turn the page, and rebuild my life." Leo came running back. "Mommy, Daddy, did you see the swans? They're magnificent." "Clara, would you like to spend some time with Daddy?" Vivian asked. "Maybe the two of you could get to know each other." "Oh, yes. Can you tell me about your work, Daddy? Mommy says you build very important things." "Of course, little one," Ethan replied, kneeling. "But first, you tell me what you like to do. What are your favorite games? What is your favorite color?" Philip returned. "Mr. Vance, your wife is looking for you. The guests are beginning to wonder about your absence." "I have to go back to my guests," Ethan told Vivian. "But we need to talk, truly talk, about Leo, about her treatment, about what we are going to do now." "I'm not going," Ethan said more firmly. "Not yet. Leo, would you like to see the inside of the hacienda? There are beautiful paintings and even a library with old books." Leo's eyes lit up. "Oh yes, are there history books?" "Lots," Ethan promised. "Philip will give you a tour while I attend to my guests, and then we'll all have dinner together. Is that all right?" Vivian hesitated. "Ethan, I'm not sure that's a good idea. Your wife didn't look very happy to see us." "Celeste will understand," he said, hoping it was true. "Philip, could you prepare 2 extra places for dinner and show Miss Leo the hacienda? She loves stories." Ethan headed toward the hacienda with a determined stride, Vivian by his side. It was time to face Celeste. Celeste's resignation. Celeste was in a lively conversation, but she looked up, and Ethan immediately saw she had been crying. "Ladies, would you excuse us for a moment?" Ethan asked politely. "I'd like to speak with my wife alone." "What did she tell you to justify hiding your daughter's existence for 7 years?" Celeste asked. "She didn't hide it out of malice, Celeste. Our breakup was very ugly. I said terrible things. I refused to listen to her. When she found out she was pregnant, she preferred to raise our daughter alone rather than risk me rejecting her. Why did she come today? What does she want? Leo is sick, Ethan confessed. She has leukemia and needs a bone marrow transplant. Vivian is not a match, and she is hoping I am. Celeste looked at him, and he saw a succession of emotions: surprise, compassion, and painful resignation. Your daughter is dying, she said finally. And your ex-girlfriend came to ask you to save her on your wedding day with another woman. It sounds like a bad melodrama script. Celeste, this child is my daughter, he repeated. Yes, Ethan, I understand. Your daughter, whom you didn't know an hour ago, and for whom you are now willing to turn our wedding upside down. I will not ignore Leo's existence, and I cannot let her die if I have the power to save her. I know, Celeste said softly. And that's exactly why I'm losing you, isn't it? Because you are a good man, Ethan. A man who could never abandon his daughter, even one he doesn't know. And I am just a wife of a few hours who suddenly finds herself competing with a sick child and the woman of your life. Vivian is not the woman of my life, Ethan protested. But even to his own ears, his words sounded false. Do you think you love me, Ethan? But look at yourself since she arrived. Your eyes shine in a way I've never seen before. That woman and that child have awakened something in you that I have never been able to touch. What do you want me to do? Tell me what you expect from me, Celeste, and I will do it. What I want is for you to get tested for your daughter. I want you to save her if you can, and I want you to be honest with yourself about what you truly feel for her mother. And us? What will happen to us? I don't know, Ethan. Maybe we will manage to overcome this. Maybe you will choose your new family. Or maybe we will discover that our marriage was a mistake from the start. A final moment of grace. Philip soon arrived with Leo, who was holding a book. Celeste, despite her pain, was incredibly kind to Leo. Hello, little one. How was your tour of the hacienda? Very good, ma'am. Your house is very beautiful. It's like a real princess castle. Are you hungry, Leo? Celeste asked. Oh, yes. I'm very hungry. And Mommy, too. She hasn't eaten anything since this morning. She was so nervous about coming to see you. This innocent revelation reminded Ethan that Vivian was also suffering. Mommy stayed in the library, Leo said. She was looking at the books, but she looked sad. I think she was crying a little. Go see her, Celeste said simply. That poor woman must be very affected. I will take care of our guests. She gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. Go, Ethan. We will have a lifetime to talk about us. That woman and that child need you now. Ethan found Vivian in the library. Clara told me you were sad. Are you all right? How can I be all right, Ethan? I just broke into your new life, on your wedding day, to tell you we have a daughter together and she's dying. I'm lost because everything I believed just fell apart in a few hours, he confessed. I thought I had built a perfect, stable life, and suddenly you appear with our daughter, and everything I thought was important seems futile. My business, my marriage, my reputation. None of that matters in the face of Leo being sick. Vivian sat down, and for the next half hour, she told him everything about Leo's leukemia. Why didn't you contact me sooner? I tried, Ethan. I really tried. But every time I tried to call you, I remembered that night. Your accusations. The way you looked at me. I was angry, he said weakly. I was jealous and proud. I said things I didn't really mean. He confessed that he later learned the truth from Marco Dubois. The photo was a simple protocol dance, and he had destroyed their love for nothing. But you never contacted me to apologize, Vivian said with reproach. You preferred to keep your pride rather than admit your mistakes. I tried, he insisted. God knows I tried, Vivian, but you had disappeared. I hired a private detective to find you. Just when I was giving up, you were discovering you were pregnant with my daughter. He looked at her before asking, Do you still feel love for her? Celeste's question hung in the air. I don't know, he confessed to Celeste later. I thought I had gotten over her, But seeing her again today has awakened things I thought were buried. But Celeste, that doesn't change my feelings for you. You are my wife, and I want our marriage to work. Do you believe you love me, Ethan? You know the answer. If that woman extended her hand, you would take it without hesitation. You would give up on me, on our marriage, on everything we built together. I don't know what I would do, he said honestly. All of this is too new, too overwhelming. I need time to understand what I feel. But Celeste, I promise you one thing. I will be honest with you. If my feelings change, if I realize I cannot be the husband you deserve, I will tell you. You don't deserve to be lied to. That's all I can ask for, she said. Honesty, even if the truth hurts. Ethan left his wife in the bridal suite and went to his study, looking out at the moonlit gardens. He was a father. Leo was extraordinary, and Vivian, seeing her again, had been a punch to the gut. He loved Celeste, but he had to admit his feelings for her never had the same burning intensity as with Vivian. He was caught between the love of the past, the obligations of the present, and the hope for Leo's future. One thing was certain. He would never give up on his daughter, whatever the consequences. This emotional saga is far from over. What do you think of the dilemmas Ethan faces? How do you see the continuation of this complex story between the love of the past, the obligations of the present, and the hope for Leo's future? The moment of truth. 24 hours after the samples were taken, Ethan and Vivian sat in a private room at Leo's specialist clinic in Mexico City. The waiting was a silent agony, punctuated only by the occasional update from the nurses regarding Leo, who was stable but undergoing further scans. They were united by fear, separated by years of resentment, and held together by one tiny sleeping girl. The door opened, and Dr. Salazar entered, holding a single, slim file. "Mr. Vance, Ms. Dominguez, we have the results." Ethan stood immediately, feeling a dizziness that had nothing to do with his fatigue. Vivian gripped the armrest of her chair, her eyes fixed on the doctor. Dr. Salazar looked directly at Ethan. "The preliminary HLA tissue typing is complete. Mr. Vance, you are a perfect match for Leo." A collective, shuddering breath escaped them. Vivian closed her eyes, tears instantly streaming down her face. Tears of relief so profound, they shook her entire body. Ethan felt a powerful, visceral surge of relief and purpose. He hadn't just gotten a second chance at fatherhood. He had been granted the power to save her life. "When can we proceed?" Ethan asked, his voice steady, his CEO focus returning. "We need to begin the pre-transplant conditioning immediately. This means your presence is required here, not just for the donation but for support. Ms. Dominguez, you know the gravity of the post-transplant recovery. For the next several months, Leo will need one primary, sterile caregiver present at all times. You both need to be here, working as a unit." The first choice, Lua Chan Daotin. The doctor left, leaving Ethan and Vivian alone with the news. The tension in the room shifted from fear of loss to the terrifying challenge of coexistence. Vivian wiped her face, the relief already hardening into cautious reality. "This is what matters," she said, her voice clear. "The transplant, the recovery. We focus on Leo. Your involvement ends when she's through the critical recovery period." "No," Ethan countered, shaking his head. "It doesn't end. I'm her father. This isn't a business transaction with an expiry date. But I understand the terms of our alliance. Leo first, always." He pulled out his phone, knowing this was the moment he had to face the consequence of his wedding day ultimatum. He had to contact Celeste. He didn't call. He sent a simple, concise text, addressing her cold, decisive demand. "Celeste, the test is positive. I am a match. I am remaining here in Mexico City indefinitely to begin Leo's treatment and recovery. I am prioritizing my daughter's life." He waited, the silence of the room amplifying the rapid beating of his heart. Moments later, a reply came back from Madrid. It contained only 2 words. I understand. The open ending. Ethan looked up, the weight of Celeste's resignation, or perhaps her sad acceptance, hanging over him. He had made the choice for Leo, and in doing so, he had implicitly chosen to remain in this new, unpredictable life with Vivian. He was now inextricably tied to the woman he had abandoned, living under the same roof as the daughter he never knew, all while his marriage hung suspended across an ocean. I need to move us closer to the clinic, Ethan said to Vivian, his eyes focused on the future, but his mind grappling with the ghost of his wife. We need an apartment with sterile air filtration, a rotating team of nurses, and a room for both of us to monitor her. Vivian looked at the man who had bought an empire and now willingly surrendered his life to save their child. She saw the powerful CEO, now the selfless father. And where will you live, Ethan? She asked quietly. In the same apartment with me and Leo, as the father, or as the man who is trying to rebuild what he broke? Ethan met her gaze, his gray eyes, Leo's eyes, filled with determination, but no answer. He was home, but he was not yet free. The transplant was merely the beginning. The real question remained. Once Leo was saved, could the fragile truce built on crisis evolve into a foundation strong enough for a future built on love, forgiveness, and the silent choice he had just made? A shared scare. 2 months into the recovery, Leo suffered a severe complication, a sudden, high fever indicating a potential infection. The alarm blared, shattering the sterile calm. In that instant, all boundaries vanished. Ethan, leveraging his logistical skill, immediately coordinated the on-call specialists while Vivian, driven by pure maternal instinct, executed the emergency cooling procedures. They moved as a seamless, frantic unit, each trusting the other implicitly. When the crisis subsided hours later and Leo was stable, they collapsed into chairs near her bed. Ethan looked at Vivian, his face pale with raw fear. We almost lost her, he whispered, the power draining from his voice. Vivian didn't look at the floor or the medical chart. She looked at him. We didn't, she stated, her voice trembling but firm. Because you were here. That single, honest acknowledgement that his presence, his resources, and his composure had been essential was the greatest progress they had made in 8 years. It was a victory measured not in corporate assets, but in survival. The ghost of Madrid, the medical crisis, forced Ethan to completely ignore the outside world. His calls to Madrid were brief and purely informational. He told Celeste that Leo's recovery was difficult, and his presence was non-negotiable. One evening, while Vivian was asleep, Ethan received a video call from Celeste. She was in a quiet room, elegantly dressed, her eyes filled with a sad maturity. I need to know what's happening, Ethan, Celeste said. Not the medical reports. The reality. The reality is sterile, exhausting, and terrifying, Ethan replied honestly. I am living in the same apartment with Vivian. We function as a team focused entirely on saving Leo. There is no romance, Celeste. There is only necessity. Celeste took a slow breath. And when the necessity is over? When Leo is healthy and the mother of your child is no longer defined by a crisis? Will you still be able to find your way back to me? Or will the man who emerges from that room be completely bound to the life he just saved? Ethan looked out the window at the distant city lights. He knew the answer was becoming clearer with every shift he shared with Vivian, every medical scare they faced together. I don't know, Celeste, he confessed. I don't know who I am when I leave this room, but I will be honest with you when I find out. The line disconnected, leaving Ethan alone with the profound, unsettling silence of his uncertain future. The fight to save Leo was almost won, but the true battle for his heart and his life was only just beginning. After 3 grueling months, Leo was finally through the critical recovery phase. Her immune system was rebuilding, and the doctors cleared her to return to Vivian's humble apartment, a space they had quickly but meticulously sterilized and prepared. The contrast between the stark hospital apartment and the warmth of Vivian's small, sunlit home was immediate. Leo, frail but joyous, immediately gravitated toward her own toys and the drawings taped to the fridge. Ethan, for the first time since his wedding day, was forced out of his sterile, managerial role and into the chaos of ordinary family life. Earning the role of daddy, the architecture of partnership, the cramped apartment forced constant, inevitable proximity between Ethan and Vivian. They were no longer operating under the adrenaline of a crisis. They were navigating the sustained effort of co-parenting. Vivian, witnessing Ethan's genuine transformation, slowly began to thaw. She saw the powerful man humble himself for a runny nose, compromise his schedule for a doctor's visit, and find pure joy in Leo's simple laughter. One evening, after Leo was asleep, they sat on the small sofa. "She's drawing again," Vivian noted, looking at a crayon picture of a family. 3 stick figures under a sun. She hasn't drawn a picture with 3 people until now. Ethan looked at the drawing, feeling a profound wave of emotion. "It's a masterpiece," he whispered. "She's naming them," Vivian continued, her voice soft. "That's me, and that's her." She pointed to the 3rd figure. She named him the Steady One. Ethan's eyes widened. He hadn't just earned the title Daddy. He had earned her trust as a reliable, permanent pillar in their life, the quality he had once abandoned in pursuit of ambition. "Vivian," Ethan began, turning to her. The complexity of his feelings for her, a blend of deep gratitude, renewed admiration, and lingering love, overwhelming him. "I still have to go to Madrid. Celeste is waiting for my choice, and I promised her honesty." Vivian met his gaze, her expression clear and strong, no longer the terrified girl he once knew. "I know, Ethan. Go. Do what you have to do. Leo and I are secure. The choice is no longer about us. It's about you. You have to decide if the man who left 8 years ago is the man you want to be tomorrow." She handed him his simple carry-on bag, signaling the decisive moment for him to face his past and define his future. "Tuyệt vời! Chúng ta hãy đi đến Madrid để chứng kiến cuộc đối đầu cuối cùng và quan trọng giữa Ethan và Celeste." Madrid. The final confrontation. Madrid. Cuộc đối đầu cuối cùng. Ethan arrived in Madrid 12 hours later, shedding the comfortable clothes of fatherhood for the sharp, dark suit of the CEO. He felt like a fraud. The man who stepped onto Celeste's pristine marble floor was not the same man who had tied his daughter's shoelaces that morning. He found Celeste in their apartment's minimalist salon. She was impeccably dressed, a study in cold, controlled elegance. The ring on her finger felt like a heavy accusation. "Hello, Ethan," Celeste said, her voice even. She offered no embrace, only a challenging look. "The flight was long, I assume. I trust Leo is stable." "She is," Ethan confirmed, putting his bag down. "She's through the critical phase and recovering well. The transplant was a success." "Good," Celeste replied, a flicker of genuine relief in her eyes. "Then we can finally have the conversation we both deferred for 3 months. The time for honesty is now." The confession of change. Ethan didn't try to defend his actions or apologize for the timing. He knew Celeste valued honesty above all else. "I need to be direct, Celeste," Ethan began, meeting her gaze. "The man who married you 3 months ago no longer exists. I went to the hospital to save my daughter. I emerged as a father. I learned that the love I felt for you, the admiration, the respect, the compatibility, was never the foundation for a lifetime commitment." Celeste remained motionless, the silence stretching taut. "It was a marriage of convenience and structure," Ethan continued, his voice heavy with regret. You offered me the stability and partnership my life was supposed to have. But when I faced the possibility of losing Leo, I realized that true commitment isn't found in a contract. It's found in the simple, terrifying, messy reality of unconditional love. Celeste finally moved, standing to look out at the Madrid skyline. "And Vivian?" she asked, her voice dangerously soft. "The woman you accused of betrayal? The woman you left for 8 years? Did she reclaim the man I thought I married?" "Vivian and I were allies in a crisis," Ethan explained. "We fought together. She showed me what courage and selfless love truly mean. Our future is not built on the romantic passion we once shared, but on a shared, unshakable foundation. Leo. She is my partner in that foundation, and I cannot and will not walk away from it. I need to be a part of their life, every day, in every way." Celeste turned back, her face etched with pain. "So you choose the life of sacrifice over the life of structure. You choose the ghost of the past over the certainty of the present. I choose my daughter, Celeste, and I choose the man Leo needs me to be. That man belongs with them." The unconventional farewell. Celeste stood silent for a long moment, processing the betrayal. Then, unexpectedly, her features softened. She removed the wedding ring and placed it gently on the coffee table. "I am angry, Ethan," she admitted. "I am hurt, and I feel robbed of the future I deserved. But I know you. You are a good man, and you always follow the logic of necessity. The necessity now is Leo." She walked toward him, her head held high. "We will end this marriage quickly and privately. You will keep your shares, and I will keep mine. There will be no public scandal, only a quiet parting of ways." Celeste looked him straight in the eye, offering the final, agonizing truth. "Go back to your family, Ethan, and don't waste the second chance that my honesty and Vivian's courage gave you. Find the happiness you couldn't find with me, because that is what a man who saves his daughter's life deserves." She leaned in and offered a final, chaste kiss on his cheek, a farewell to their shared illusion. Ethan left Madrid the next morning, carrying only his simple carry-on bag. The marble floors and the cold elegance of the apartment felt like a distant, irrelevant dream. He was leaving behind a billionaire's life and a beautiful, gracious wife. But he was flying toward a small, sunlit apartment and the two people who represented his true, chaotic, and meaningful future. He was flying home. "You are absolutely right. My apologies for switching back to Vietnamese. I will immediately provide the final section of the story in English, maintaining the established names: Ethan, Vivian, and Leo." The re-entry. From allies to architects. Ethan returned to Vivian's small apartment in Mexico City late in the afternoon, not as an arrogant CEO, but as a man who had lost an empire of a marriage and was seeking a foothold in a simple life. Vivian opened the door. She saw the small carry-on bag, his weary but clear eyes. She immediately understood. "Celeste," Vivian began. "She is a gracious woman," Ethan interjected, his voice sincere. "And she set me free. I'm back. This is where I belong." The unspoken shift, Ethan's return, created a subtle but profound change in the apartment. With Leo no longer greeted him as Mr. Ethan or Daddy hesitantly. When he returned, she ran to hug him, and the name Daddy was now used with the naturalness and intimacy of a child who feels secure. Ethan now attended parent-teacher meetings, park outings, when Leo was strong enough, and helped build elaborate blanket forts with Vivian. The boundary between them began to melt. No longer confined to urgent medical exchanges, they began to share mundane moments. Cooking dinner together, Ethan was clumsy but willing to learn, chuckling over Leo's mischievous intelligence and staying up late to calculate household expenses. Their relationship was not a flare-up of old romance, but the deliberate construction of a new, sturdy love, built on respect and shared purpose. The kitchen table. Contract one evening, after tucking Leo into bed, Ethan and Vivian sat opposite each other. It wasn't to sign legal papers, but to redefine their life's contract. "I am not Celeste," Vivian said, her voice honest and tinged with fear. "I can't run a corporation. I can't attend major events with you. I can only be Leo's mother, and I can only be me." Ethan smiled, a smile stripped of all CEO arrogance. "I am no longer the man who needs a wife like Celeste," he countered. "I spent half my life building an empire, but only in 3 months here did I truly learn how to love. I need someone to remind me that the value of life lies in simplicity, not in assets." He took her hand, a slow, deliberate gesture. "We are not a perfect romantic pair, Vivian, but we are the perfect architects for Leo's life. Let's build it together, one day at a time, without rushing. I don't need you to be my wife immediately. I just need you to be my partner, the mother of our daughter, and the only person who sees me as just a man." Vivian nodded, tears welling but not falling. Forgiveness was not a single event, but a sustained process, and she was ready to begin that process. The open window 6. Months after Leo returned home, the three of them were sitting on the floor, surrounded by scattered toys. Leo, healthy, radiant, and full of energy, was laughing heartily. Ethan looked at Vivian, and she met his gaze. No words were needed. They were a chaotic, warm, perfectly imperfect portrait. A family. Ethan still ran his company, but he now used his wealth and influence to establish a research fund focused on finding treatments for childhood leukemia. A new legacy, built on love and salvation. In a quiet moment, Leo looked up at them. "My birthday is coming up," she said. "What should we do?" Ethan and Vivian exchanged a look, the look of teammates, lovers, and creators. "We will do anything you want," Ethan answered, his voice full of hope. Vivian added, looking into Ethan's eyes rather than Leo's, "We will do everything together." They had no immediate promises of marriage, no declaration of a Hollywood-style undying love. But they had an open future, built on truth, forgiveness, and the daughter they had fought side by side to save. Ethan had lost his fortune, but found his true treasure: a home, a family, and a second chance to be himself. This concludes the story. Thank you for sharing this emotional journey with me.